Hello, I'm Sally Aneri, and welcome to Fearless Forward, the podcast that asks leaders how they've faced their fears. Today, we're crossing the Atlantic to the US state of Georgia, and I'm in conversation with one of the top strategic planning consultants in the USA. She founded her current business in 2008 and is so skillful in helping organizations make their most critical decisions that today she's in constant demand. As a result, she has a work schedule that certainly isn't for the faint-hearted, and a client list that includes US government departments, not-for-profits, and some of the best-known companies in the country. And she has the reward and recognition to match. But it wasn't always like that, and Tierah Lothbrok has had an extraordinary journey through a number of what she calls car crashes. Growing up in a small southern US town, where girls were not encouraged to have professional ambitions, she nevertheless won a place at college to study journalism. That, however, wasn't to be. At just 19 years of age, she got pregnant and then married, and her mother, after years of mental illness, took her own life. So Tierah's desired direction changed. She enrolled in a local community college, earned a degree in business administration, and started her own accountancy business. But just as that was getting off the ground, her marriage broke up. Soon afterwards, she married again, and by the time she was 30, she and her second husband had built a chain of mortgage brokerages throughout the southern states. They got out just ahead of the subprime mortgage crisis, and Tierah took her knowledge and experience forward into training other brokers. Joining a training company whose purpose was to transform the mortgage industry, she taught and advocated strategic organizational change. Through all of Tierah's extraordinary challenges from a very young age, her driving force was her desire to provide for her family and all those who depended on her. She feared not having the financial security to do that, and worse still, one day becoming dependent on them. So she became stronger and more resilient until her professional success became addictive, almost to the point of obsession. And then something happened, an awakening, she calls it. She realized that her huge sense of responsibility was stifling her joy. And now, for the first time in her life, she's decided to do the thing that's right for her. Welcome, Tierah.
So happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So, Tierah, tell me, what is this big decision that you've taken?
Good way to describe a very big decision. The decision that I have made for the upcoming year is that I'm actually going to step away from my business for at least 6 months. And depending on what manifests in those 6 months, I'm going to continue. So it is to literally stop doing all the things that have led me to this point to try to create a whole new direction for what I'm going to contribute for the rest of my life.
And it sounds as if you feel that to create this whole new direction, you need to give yourself space.
I need space, and I need to take the steps that have to happen in order for me to stop doing some things. And the things I need to stop is work. And that is such a strange thing to say. And it almost originally felt like nonsensical, to be honest, to say the words like, I need to stop work, not like retiring, not like winding down what I'm going to do with my life, but actually intensify it by doing the things I really have always wanted to do and the things I have felt really quite destined to do. But the success of my business actually was a major hurdle to doing those things. I want to write, Sally Ann. I've always been a writer. I've written poetry. I've written lyrics. I've written short stories. I write my Christmas card every year and love laboring over it. And I enjoy it when I do it. And people seem inspired by and appreciate it when I set aside the time to do. But I haven't ventured past a Christmas card or an occasional note out to colleagues in a very long time. And I know that there has been a book about resiliency for youth that I have wanted to write since my children began to struggle with resiliency and seeing their friends and colleagues just not succeed in that area. And I think it's critical to the health of the ages to come, the youth to come, that we relearn this critical skill. So I want to write about it.
And you have a lot to offer because, if I may, your own personal experience has caused you, I think, in order to survive, to build a lot of resilience.
I think that's how I knew this was my journey, because the number of people who I've encountered and said, Tierah, I know little of your story, but I don't understand how you're so positive, or how you stay so engaged in life, or how you still seem forward-facing in your outlook. And I really began to ask myself, is that really so odd and so strange? And I think it is, especially in this day and age. And I think I do owe many of what I like to call car crashes to teaching me how I'm going to be okay. I just need to carry on.
And when did you first know that?
I think at a very, very young age. And so, not to reveal too much more of the story, but my mother was, I had always suffered with mental illness. And so I became the parent around 6 years old. I have 3 siblings, 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. And so I've been a grown up and making things work for my family most of my life. And so I've always felt like I would just make it work, and I would figure it out, and I would keep us all together and moving forward. And so it's just been built from a very, very young age. And I think that's why the story of the heroine in my book for children is going to start at about 10 years old, to tell the story of the things she encounters and how it's just a normal part of life to encounter hard things. And it's so important to know, like I got to learn, that you're going to be okay.
So is your children's story, the one you've just mentioned, is it going to be largely autobiographical?
That's such a great question. I don't think it can help but be in lots of ways, but actually I confess that much of what I'll be sharing is going to be based on an environment where all of that got built into my daughter, and my granddaughter is very resilient and brilliant and strong. And I think it's because she's had this opportunity to be led by strong, resilient women. And I want other people to see what that can be like.
So it's about resilience in women mainly?
Not even in women. It's just that I have the privilege of being surrounded by some incredible humans that are women, but it's just the story of life where things just don't work all the time, and bad things happen. You lose things in people you love. You have fractures in relationships. You have disappointments. You have pains. Many of them you cause yourself. And I think that's an important part of my story, and an important part of the story I want others to know, that we're going to make bad decisions. We're going to do things we regret. And as I'll continue to say, we're going to be okay.
So for you, resilience is, if I may paraphrase what I'm hearing, is about, no matter what, knowing you'll be okay.
That's it, at the very heart of it. And I don't know enough people right now who know that truth.
And I wonder, how do we know it? When you say you know it, where does that knowing come from?
The knowing for me comes from facing things that you can't prepare for, things that you can't even understand when you're in them, and coming through to the other side. And not just coming through. Sometimes that's a great outcome, just coming through, but being built by it, being strengthened by it. And that sometimes the harder it is, the more successful and capable you feel coming out the other side of it. And without those things stretching and trying and pushing us, we don't actually know what we're capable of. And so I think over and over again, I began to see myself more capable, more willing to see that there were bigger dreams and more opportunities and more to me than even I recognized or anyone had called out in me. And so I think it's that overcoming that lets you feel that sense of capability.
And as you look back over your life, are you aware of whether you realized this, if you like, in hindsight, after the event, after the difficult event? Or were you able to realize it during it?
I definitely can say, as I approach 60, it's much clearer. and you know, I feel so cliche in saying it, but wisdom does come with age. And I think seeing the series of events and what they created definitely gives me a really clear perspective that some of the things, when you're in the middle of them, you just feel very much in the middle of them. And even when you come through, you don't see what's it's actually making possible. So I think my age definitely has helped me make those connections. But I can say on a couple of occasions where people would ask me to speak on my experience or would ask me to engage and I would be supporting someone else to that experience. I knew then that there was something I knew that other people didn't know, and I very much wanted them to know it. And so there are these definite distinct points where not just having the experience, but along the way sharing the experience with others brought some strong awareness about those things.
Yes, I can imagine, because you're more in the observer position then, aren't you? A little bit more detached, perhaps, more able to kind of make sense of it. But as you say also, as you go through life, I guess that inner belief or inner confidence develops, or it doesn't. And in your case, it has. Can you think of a point in any of that where you didn't believe?
There were actually so many. And I think that's why I'm so convinced that I need to repurpose some of my life towards helping people accelerate through those moments where you just have such great doubt in yourself. And it's looking back, it's been amazing to me the number of times that people around me had ultimate confidence in me, and I didn't share that same confidence. And I think I told myself the story that they didn't really know the backstory of all the bad choices that I had made. And there were points along the way where I felt like this next bad thing is maybe something I deserve. What bad moment, what bad choice, what wrong step that I placed that now I have to go through another version of this. And then I met some amazing people who helped me understand that it's just a decision. It's not the decision. And you can make another one. And it's often not up to you, and to begin to understand that life is an experience, that how you engage it is up to you, but what it is isn't often. And so when I stopped really making myself the owner of my own story in that way, where I was responsible for every piece, the director, the producer, the lead actress, the writer, and the audience, I began to see it much more clearly that I get to play a part and I get to decide sort of the nature of my character. But other than that, I'm in this big play with everyone else, and it completely changed my view of what each of these experiences meant and what it was creating in me.
What I'm hearing there, Tierah, is there was a point at which you let go of having full responsibility for it.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it.
And I don't want to draw any obvious connections here, but I'm just wondering, as a child, being a parent at such a young age, I'm imagining that imbued you, if you like, with a big sense of responsibility, as if it was yours to do. Everything was yours to do. Is that fair?
It's very fair. And I think the interesting thing is that I was always praised and lauded for that. And so not only was it my responsibility, because it was very clear that sometimes if I wasn't able to do it, no one else was either. And so that definitely builds responsibility into someone. But also when I was successful in it, how you're so mature and you handle things so well, and you seem to not be moved by things. And in all confession, I think some of it was just a wall of protection for myself, but it appeared to be strength. And so you lean into things that people approve of in you and recommend you for things because you bring forward these qualities. But it was maybe a forced unearthing of that capability that I still enjoy to use now. But my life made that in me, for sure.
And what I'm hearing there in that part of what you said there was not quite aligned between how people were seeing you and what was actually going on inside. So they saw the strength and the self-control and the responsibility and the reliability and all of those things, which were important values for you. But inside, it didn't feel like that to you.
For most of my life, it didn't feel that way.
And now it does?
Now it does. It truly, truly does. And that's that's a very recent thing. And it's a beautiful, I like to tell people it's a delicious new awareness that it's strength, not because now it doesn't own me. It became actually responsibility, became something that I think owned me, that drove me in a way that didn't allow me to explore or, again, unearth those other parts of me that I think are powerful to contribute to the rest of this walk on the earth for others. But now, yes.
Wow. So if you had to draw a picture of what the next stage of your life looks like, what would it be?
Wide open on all fronts and actually leaning into joy, because I think when you are gifted and burdened with responsibility, joy's not at the top of the list. Success, accomplishment, solutions is really what you're leaning into. It's what you pursue meaningfully. And all of those things are beautiful things, and I've enjoyed the fruits of all of those labors. But joy hasn't been one, and I think joy has been a little elusive. And I think that's what drove me really, truly, Sally Ann, to my decision, is that my joy is in people, and I have the best relationships I've ever enjoyed with people in my life at this point. I think much to do to my growth finally out of some of the wrong thinking. But also, I think I've always had joy in writing. And every time I tried to lean into writing, responsibility stepped up and said, me first. And now I get to write, and I'm loving it every day.
And you've already started the writing journey then?
I have started the writing journey.
Fantastic. And then when you, may I call it sabbatical, is that the right word? When you step into the sabbatical in, I guess, a few weeks' time, you'll be, how do you see your life then? Do you have a picture of it?
Actually, I don't, which is, I think, the healthiest thing about it. I know that what I won't be doing, but I really don't have a strong idea of what I will be doing. And that's really the purpose of it, is to see what will happen when I'm not doing this. And I've made dozens and dozens and dozens of attempts to see what life looks like beyond running the business and serving clients. But I've been unsuccessful. And so now I'm going to know what that's like. And I'm so excited for it.
You have been working for years and years, helping people to strategize and plan and decide. And now you're at the other end of that, if you like. You're letting go of all of that and saying, well, forget about everything I've been doing for 20 years and helping other people do. I'm not even going to help myself do that anymore. I'm going to let go of it and just see what happens.
It's actually just exciting. I thought I would be afraid. I thought I would be really worried. And I found out that that wasn't really the thing that was in my way. I don't think it was ever fear in my way. I think it really was just a pattern of life that had served me well. I didn't have any takers on, hey, maybe I should wrap up my business. Like, why would you do that? It's successful. It's meaningful. It's good work. You love it. Why would you do it? But now I feel even more fearless going into the unknown that I could have ever imagined. I just needed to know the answer. I needed to know how to break free of responsibility long enough to do something, anything else, the thing that I loved most. And so, strangely, I'm only excited. I'm not afraid.
And what a liberating feeling, and I can see it all over your face right now, Tierah. You know, complete embodiment of the excitement of that, the prospect of it, that you're already living, in fact. It's like present in you right now. And you mentioned earlier that you felt that what's stopped you doing this sooner in your life was success. Were you too successful?
Wow, that feels like a question that I shouldn't answer honestly, but I'm going to, because I imagine other people will find it curious, but others might also be struggling, is that success is such an incredibly addictive thing. And though I worked through a lot to get to a great launching pad, success after that has come actually with lots of blood, sweat, and tears, but easily in every other way. I love my clients and they love me. I love my work and it produces really great outcomes. And so for all the things I know most people are searching for, I have had that, and it's great, but it's also incredibly addictive. It's very hard to stop doing something that people ask you to do, so much so that I could and often did work every single day in a year. making sure that anyone who needed and believed that I could help had the opportunity for me to do that. And so my colleagues will tell you honestly, I had way too much success. So to put it into context, as a strategy consultant working for multiple firms, I always billed 3 times what any of my nearest colleagues billed. And I didn't really have to sell that much to do it. I just had to deliver.
So I'm wondering whether part of that success, if not all of it, might have been driven by an unconscious fear of failure.
It may have been. I think, if anything, the fear was that if I stopped, because I never felt like I earned it, that it wouldn't come back and that I wouldn't be able to take care of my family. And so I not only did I get to be a part of taking care of my family when I was young, I have 4 amazing children, 3 daughters and a son. And for the most part, I've been the financial provider. I've been the guide in the home. And then there's just this constellation of other humans that have counted on me for long periods of time. And so because my responsibility is always right there and readily accessible, I had quite a large family of choosing that I also took responsibility for. And so I was very afraid that they wouldn't have what they needed if I didn't continue at the pace that I did, and that if I ever stopped and tried to do anything as risky as being an author in a world of so many talented authors, that they would need something and I wouldn't be able to provide it.
And it sounds from what you're saying as if that fear has at least abated, if not disappeared. And has that anything to do with a change of circumstance?
They must certainly be. All of my children are adults, or as they say, adulting now. So I have my children are age 24 to almost 40. And so they are definitely living and choosing their own lives. But I also will say that where they're not immediately dependent on me, I also was driven longer than I needed to be to make sure that I would never be dependent on them. And so I saw how families burdened with taking care of parents when they weren't able to, when they were willing to but not able to, really destroyed some beautiful lifelong relationships. And I truly value the relationships I have with my children. And so until I had reached a certain amount of financial success that would guarantee that they would never have to care for me financially, I wouldn't stop. But I can happily say that I feel confident that though the world may surprise me with another car wreck, right now I can take this risk and we'll see what happens.
Yes, and it doesn't feel like such a big risk anymore.
It doesn't. I think the only thing that's really at a risk now is that I love what I do. And so if I really stop, and I'm going to stop being a facilitative consultant, if book writing isn't for me, then I might not have that joy to come back to. But it's a fear that's manageable.
And that is a sense, isn't it? I mean, how can we know that? But you feel inside, somewhere inside, that this particular fear of things not working out, perhaps, is manageable. And a reliance on what you said right at the beginning, that you'll be okay. So, okay, things may not turn out as you sort of have imagined in your mind. Even if it's not that clear, you still have a sense of the direction. But hey, if that changes, you'll figure it out, right?
That is as true a statement as I've had anyone say. I know whatever's on the other side of this chosen adventure, that there's another wonderful adventure for me to choose. And now that I understand choosing, now that I understand not just managing through whatever's put before me, not just stepping through whatever door allows me to meet my obligations. If the next adventure's one I don't prefer, I'll stay on that path until I choose the next one. And so choice and this absolute confidence that I shouldn't have been okay until now, and I have been. I shouldn't have been as successful as I was, but I have been. I shouldn't have been able to find the person I want to do the rest of my life with at almost 60, and I have. It really opens up your mind that there's so many beautiful things life has planned for you that you have no idea, I can really lean into that belief now.
That sounds so beautiful, Tierah. And I heard you say earlier something about supporting people to accelerate through the difficult moments. And I want to just explore that a little bit, because sometimes I wonder, when really difficult things happen, if we don't push through, if we sort of allow them to be as they are for a bit and really, swim in it for a bit, not that it's very pleasant, but I wonder if there isn't some benefit in that. I don't know, I'm no expert, but just my experience.
I'm really glad that you framed it that way, because accelerate doesn't mean rush through it. Life doesn't even have that much meaning unless you get a chance to be courageous. And if nothing ever happens, you don't get a chance to be courageous. If you don't get a chance to overcome, if you don't get a chance to be victorious, you don't get a chance to be willing to sacrifice something, to have something else happen, to be a little bit fearless. And so I would never want to rob any of my readers of any of those things by having them miss out on the trials and challenges that allow us to really know who we are and what we're capable of. But what I'd like to accelerate would be the time that we spend abusing ourselves with these myths that this was up to us and that it was all our fault, and that some decision we had made or some choice or wrong turn or failure to adhere to guidance made us somehow either responsible for the word we've used often, or more susceptible to things. Life has really common challenges that we all need to face in order to be prepared for the others that are definitely coming. So the acceleration I want is for us to move past the part where we have to be cruel to ourselves and say ugly things to ourselves, and just begin to say, what do you learn? What do you need to learn? What can you see? What can you do? Do that first thing, and you'll be okay.
Because I think it can be, can't it, when we're going through very difficult things, that yes, we take it all on ourselves. And it skews our sense of how things really are, doesn't it? It skews our capacity to see things as they are. And that can be, let's call it unhelpful, to put it mildly, and damaging sometimes. Yes, so if you can help people realise that this is a journey many, many, many people are on and have been through, and I guess what matters is that we learn something about ourselves in the process. So, Tierah, looking at your life, this rich and extraordinary life that you've had, immensely successful, even if you feel you didn't deserve it. I think you did, but hey. What have you learned about yourself?
I've learned that I definitely have I have a purpose, and I hope everyone learns that at some point. But it's not in what I do, and it's not in how successful I am, and it's not in the things that we most often count. I've learned my purpose is to show up as completely and as healthy as I possibly can in the moment. And that creates magic that I can't do in any other way. And so I've learned that I got in the way of the magic for a very long time. Doing the things that we get taught are so important. And I'm not saying being responsible, working hard, those things aren't important. They are important, but they don't produce anything nearly as magical as actually being willing to be in the moment and show up with all of you, whatever that means in that time.
And that's what you do today?
More and more every day. My days used to be incredibly structured, and I would congratulate myself because I would get all that was done on my list. Pretty great stuff. But that's all I ever did, is get all the things done that were on my list, and there was never any room for magic.
We all ought to have a to-do list where one of the items is create magic. So looking at your data, because we can talk about magic and we can understand what we mean, and I think, let's hope many of us listening might be able to relate to moments in our life that have felt magical. But if you're talking about creating every day as magical in some way, what do you need to make sure you're doing?
I think it's a tough question because it's almost anti what actually is necessary. It's when we think beyond what we actually know, when we try to project into the future things that we can't know, either fears or expectations, and then we try to lunge for those and pursue those, we miss the opportunities. And so my day looks like this. Take responsibility for the things that you're actually responsible for. Leave everything else to those for whom are best suited to manage their lives, their businesses, their choices, their needs. Get less involved in those things so that people can grow into their own form of resilience. And then you have plenty of time to do things like connect with a friend because they're having a bad day, and you can just stop. You can just stop and go and prepare a meal for someone whose birthday didn't turn out the way that they wanted to turn out. And then there's just magic. You have room to stop and hand make the tags that you want to put on a present to someone that you know that they'll know that you thought of them. You have time to write and look back at what you wrote and go, I learned just by writing that to me. I needed that message for the day. You cook, you walk, you decorate your bed for excitement for you to come to bed at night. It's just those things where it's not something you need to do. You just want to do it. And I think we came to the planet with so many things that we wanted to do that were actually a part of our purpose. And then somewhere along the way, we decided the things we want to do aren't the important things. It's the things that we should do. And as a friend of mine says, you start shoulding yourselves and all the magic disappears. And if you think of so many of the stories, especially for seasons where children have magic, it's because they're not yet burdened by all the shoulds in life. And so I would say, taking from what other people said, not brand new, enjoy the day like a child as much as you can.
And I suppose in reality, that might also be, having that clearly in mind, setting a very clear intention for yourself around that. And then noticing as you walk through your day, the moments in which you might feel yourself torn, pulled away to help someone, or not that you wouldn't want to help them, but being able to discern whether the person really needs your help and whether that's really what you want to be doing, or if it's the most helpful thing to help them or not. Being super discerning as you walk through your day about what is serving, I would actually say, your real need. I know you talked about needs and wants. You can call it wants if you prefer, but how I hear that is it's actually listening to a deeper need inside. But making sure that you're super choiceful as you go through your day and keeping clearly focused on what a magical day or an alive day is for you.
I think for the most part, yes, Sally Ann, you've captured it. I don't get up today and say, let's make today magical, because that's back into making things, right? I don't get up and say, we're going to spend this much time just being present. It's none of those things. It is, I know I still have things that I do that need to be done, and doing them now is not just what I need to do, but also there's that sense of freedom to choose to do those things, to pursue a new opportunity, or to engage with a new client as I move towards this wrapping up of this part of my life for this period of time. But it really is more of, when you see something that calls to you, call back. When you see something that's beautiful, stop and say, that's beautiful. And I think now even more, I have someone to share that with. If something is curious, be curious. If something is compelling, let yourself be compelled, and don't shoo away those feelings that come very naturally. There's nothing conjured about a magical day. Magical things are very of our choices, which is what makes it fantastic. But if you will not resist magic as it presents itself to you on any given day, at any given time, then it will deliver such a beautiful gift.
It sounds to me, Tierah, like a waking up to the world, seeing the world perhaps through a different lens to the one you've had for a while.
It's a waking up. It's a engaging And again, so much of this sounds like things that you hear and you reject. And so if I would say anything to my readers is, you don't know what you're saying no to. You know what you think you're saying yes to when you work hard and you build things, and those things also can bring you great joy. But if you can't stop doing them, if you can't choose to do something else, then something is actually in control of you. If at any time you feel like you don't have the choice not to stay up until 1:00 in the morning to build a PowerPoint, if you ever feel like you don't have the choice to not go to work when you are deathly ill, if you ever feel like you can't say no to an opportunity because other opportunities might not come, you're shooing away, you're rejecting and you're resisting the magic that would happily present itself to you throughout your life. And I had been doing that for a very long time.
And am I right in thinking you have a second book in mind, not just one for children? Is that right?
It's actually emerged in the early writing of getting ready for my sabbatical. It's called Decide, of all things. And very excited to help everyone begin to see what decisions really are, and that we're not making them as often as we think we are. Often we're just moving forward through the next open door, but decisions are really powerful things, and they activate will and choice. And I hope that it will be a great, great service to others who have some really beautiful decisions to make.
Yes, because as you just alluded to there, quite often in life we fall through open doors, for which we can be grateful. They often give us opportunities, don't they? But we may not necessarily have decided them. They sort of happened, or they were presented to us, right? And I'm aware in our previous conversations that you feel that your life was a little bit like that you kind of fell through these doors, and now that's you're deciding. You're the one making the big decision, and it feels very different. So much there that you're going to give back, aren't you, to young people, to older people, through your writing. And I remember you telling me once that right when you were young, you wanted to be a journalist. So this has been in your blood for a very long time.
I feel like that the work I've done has been a service. I don't regret or feel like that I have wasted my life in any significant way, but I have missed out on, I think, some of the best parts of me. And I think I've missed out on offering some of those. And so now's my time, and I'm going to take it. I'm not going to look back with regret, but I am going to look forward with excitement about maybe everything has come to this point, but I am really certain that I've always wanted to write, and not being able to stop and do that is what compelled me to make this change. And now I know. Full stop my business. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing it, and I'm delighted.
It's time. I have one more question, which I think you may just have answered, but I'll ask it anyway in case there's anything else that comes to you. And that is this. So as you know, Tierah, I call this podcast Fearless Forward. And I'm very curious at this stage in your life, with this decision, what does Fearless Forward mean to you?
Fearless Forward means embracing there's beautiful things waiting for you up ahead. So it's not that we should look at the future with fear, but with excitement, that there's something waiting for us if we'll just move in that direction.
How many of us go through life following the things we think we should, and not the things we really want and need? If you take one thing from this conversation, may it be a reminder to live your life. Take the time to listen inside yourself for what that is for you. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of that's stopping me being and doing what I really want? As you heard from Tierah, it's never too late. Life doesn't have that much meaning unless you get a chance to be courageous, she said, to face the difficult challenges, come through them, and grow from the experience. Show up fully, feel the feelings, notice the beauty. This, Tierah has realized, is what creates the magic you can't do in any other way, in your work as well as your life. This is the magic of spontaneous choices and genuine human connection. So take responsibility for the things only you are responsible for, and leave the rest to others. Most of all, we need to be kind to ourselves. Lose the harsh self-judgment. Stop beating ourselves up for every mistake we make. Focus instead on what we've learned from it. Decide to do things differently next time and be stronger for it. Like Tierah, we too can embrace our future with joy and delight. If one adventure leads nowhere, there's always another one waiting. It's up to us. Thank you for listening. Fearless Forward is edited and produced by Mark Steadman. I'll be back with you in 2 weeks for our next conversation about how leaders have faced their fears. To be sure of catching it, go to fearlessforward.org, activate push notifications from your favourite podcast source, or subscribe to my weekly bulletin at skillfulleaders.com.